Hello, everybody, and welcome. So, I want to talk about Project Station and how I'm going to keep the system of inside the interior cool and hot. Because I know everybody's thinking, well, you got all this stuff and whatnot. You got water, you got power, you got this, jazz like that. What about your AC conditioning ability and jazz like that? And yes, that becomes an issue. Keeping cool is definitely something that's primary, and keeping warm is definitely a primary thing. Now, I don't need a huge cooling system or a huge heating system because obviously the trailer is only going to be as large as twin size bed. So that's not something that you really need to massively think about how much um, positioning ability of keeping that cool with a massive device. But it still comes into understanding that you need to keep cool and you need to stay warm. So how am I going to keep cool? Well, with my idea of using these guys as basically micro AC or low voltage AC units, I can convert some pellet coolers that are designed specifically for your phone, which I'll demonstrate here in a second. Let's keep my case off. Basically, these are designed to basically snap on like this and stick to the back of your phone like that. And they'll cool the foam via using the metal plate on the back by cooling that plate and transferring that heat onto the phone's backing. And then the phone glass will transfer that heat to the external devices and things like that inside the phone to keep it cool. But instead of actually utilizing that for the phone, let's say we actually bump this plate upwards and turn it from a flat surface to a more rigid surface. Maybe like that tall. Now we can utilize the cooling system of this plate and this plate and transfer that into the heat fins or the metal fins, and we can just go. Now we say need something to go to blow those cooled fins in through the air. Now this entire concept is actually a thing with swamp coolers. They normally use a filter that has a mesh or sponge kind of material, and the fan basically blows that cold air from the sponge. So you have a sponge here and a fan, and as the sponge gets wet, it cools down the sponge, and then the fan basically sucks that sponge water and the air that's around it and just goes like that. So this concept, instead of using a swamp cooler system, it basically utilizes power over cooling. The exact same kind of system as a compressor does, that has a cold vapor side and then a hot side. That's the same thing as your house does. It has the hot side on the outside and the cold side is actually on the inside. The hot side is what keeps it from overheating itself by that fan. As long as that fan keeps those heat fins nice and cool, then the transfer of the cold side can also be cooler. So the same thing happens with the pellet cooler. As long as these heat fins inside of here keep this, with this little fan, keeps the heat fins nice and chill, then the cold side can perform as correct. So if I keep that like that, then I can keep the cold fins nice and chilled and blow that in through the air. And there you go. Low voltage AC unit right here. All I would need to do is reverse this fan. So instead of cooling outside the fins here, it'll actually suck the fins from the air from outside and suck into here and then blow out through the middle. And I just need a little tiny pipeline going there and boom. I just set this on my desk and let another fan just blow air this way and Yeah. Ice cold air. Whew. Now, of course, you could use this for any kind of pelt cooler system, but I would recommend something that has a higher wattage, because the higher wattage you can use, the better outcome it can actually stabilize the cooling ability. Because as I found that for phone coolers, as they get more increasingly hot, the performance of keeping that wattage down gets up, and it can't keep the cool down. So as the heat rises or gets hotter and hotter on the device, it's more harder to cool down the phone. But a higher wattage system will actually push down that hotness, because it can actually put more power into the cooling mechanism and keep a stabilized cool system. So even though it will say like, oh, it drops down to 0.12 C or 8 minus 8 C or something like that, that means bullcrap. It's all about the wattage. The more watts, the more it can actually stabilize the cooling ability. So basically, if I had my hand stuck here, for instance, and I kept on moving around, the more wattage will actually drop the temperature more harder down, even though I'm keeping this, trying to warm this up as much as possible. It will actually keep the temperature drop down more, depending on how much more it can actually pump into the chill plate side. So more power, more chill, more stable chill system. It's not all about how far it can drop in chill. It's more how stable it can actually stay chilled at that point of interest. So more wattage is actually better. So if you can find something over 10 watts, for instance, like a lot of them will be 10 watts. Um, like three of my devices of my pellet coolers are all like 10 watts. This is the only one that's around 25 to 27 watts. And this is the most powerful cooler right here that I have right now. But if you can get something that's like over 38 watts or something like that, go for that. Don't go for, this and this and this, saying, oh, yeah, we have the maximum cool charging ability and blah, blah, blah. Like, Black Shark or something like that. Saying that, oh, yeah, we have some kind of special cooling mechanism, blah, 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 blah. It's like, no, listen to the amount of watts that it can actually pump to the pellet cooler. The higher the wattage, the more stable it can actually stay cool. That's the primary thing. Not only for your phone, but also for your makeshift micro low voltage AC unit ability. And same thing for if you want to use it for a heater. Just take off that. Now you got a little heater. And then use the pellet cooler system and just throw it out. It's easy. But for a heater system, I would actually say I would probably use one of those old school driver window thaw heaters. Normally, a lot of cars have these already built into the windows. They use those little lines to heat up those little plate lines on the back window. But on the driver's side, normally you don't get that kind of benefit unless they have the invisible kind of dealio. Or, well, most cars nowadays, they have the little air vents that are on the bottom. They just go and they blow on top. But in the old days, you would have to use these like mounted heat, plug into 12 volts cigarette lighter port, mount it on top of the dashboard, and then blow the heat onto the window pane to heat up the window. Those are still around, but they're not as crazy. They're simple and basic, but those are still around. And that's, I would say, I probably use to kind of heat up the place a bit. But I won't really probably need as much, but still it's a thing. And it's probably be more than decent for size like this, because again, I'm only having like what, less than 7 feet worth of range to work with to fill the entire trailer or heat up the entire trailer, and probably half if I'm sitting up. I can just, close off the back end and just heat that sector of my little sitting area as I game. So yeah. So my cooling system might be a lot smaller than my heating system, but still having at least about 3 of these blowing, that was actually pretty decent. Probably about 150 watts if I get a decent powerful pellet cooler and buy 3 of those, convert them to micro AC units. Yeah, 150 watts of chilling ability. So yeah, cool. So my AC and my heating ability are pretty decent. Low powered, low wattage, and a fart down to the beans. So I'll see you guys later. Peace out.